Adam had waited many years to own a home of his own. He worked long hours and saved every coin with care. When he finally bought the small house at the end of the quiet street, he felt proud and calm for the first time in his life. The house was simple. Nothing fancy. But the backyard held something special. A clean blue swimming pool surrounded by a short fence and tall trees. It felt like a private island in the middle of the neighborhood. Adam lived alone and liked it that way. He enjoyed silence. He enjoyed routine. Every morning he went to work and every evening he returned home to the same peaceful space. On hot days he swam in the pool. On cooler nights he sat near the water and rested his tired mind. The pool was not just water to him. It was the reward for all the years of hard work. For the first year, nothing disturbed his peace. The neighbors were polite. They waved. They smiled. They kept their distance. Everything felt respectful and quiet. Adam believed he had chosen the perfect place to live. Then one summer a new family moved in next door. At first Adam paid little attention. He saw moving trucks. He saw loud conversations. He heard laughter and shouting. He told himself it would settle down once they finished moving in. It never did. The new neighbors were not a quiet family. Their house filled with people from morning until night. Children ran in and out. Music played often. Cars filled the street. Adam tried to be patient. He reminded himself that everyone lives differently. He stayed indoors more often and used his pool late at night when things were calmer. One hot afternoon, Adam returned home earlier than usual. The sun burned high in the sky. He dropped his bag near the door and walked straight to the backyard with a simple wish for a quiet swim. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. 3 children were inside his pool. They laughed loudly as they splashed water everywhere. Their towels lay on his chairs. Empty drink bottles rested near the grass. Adam stood frozen for a moment as his mind struggled to understand what was happening. No one had asked him. No one had even looked toward his house. One of the children noticed him staring and pointed. An adult man leaned over the fence and smiled casually. The man spoke as if nothing was wrong. He said the kids were just cooling off and would leave soon. His voice held no worry. Adam stepped forward slowly and asked them to leave. He kept his voice polite even though his heart beat hard. The man shrugged and told the children to come out. They left the pool slowly with no shame on their faces. The gate closed and silence returned. Adam believed that moment would be the end of it. The next day, it happened again. This time it was different children. Adam sighed deeply but once again asked them to leave. Once again they smiled and left. Once again he believed the message was delivered. It happened again the next afternoon. And the next. Soon it became clear that this was no accident or misunderstanding. The neighbors had decided that Adam's pool was a shared space. They entered his yard without asking and treated the place like it belonged to everyone. Some days it was children. Other days it was adults. On weekends it felt like a party. Music played. Laughter echoed. Drinks sat on his table. Wet towels covered his chairs. Adam felt like a guest in his own backyard. At first Adam tried to solve the problem calmly. He spoke to the man named Rick who lived next door. Rick laughed and told Adam not to worry so much. He said water was meant to be shared. He said the children loved the pool too much to stay away. Adam replied that the pool was private. Rick nodded but his eyes showed little care. The next day the pool was full again. Adam tried again. This time his voice was firmer. Rick smiled again and promised it would not happen. Then it happened again. Each time Adam felt his patience grow thinner. He stopped swimming in the afternoons. He stopped inviting friends. He stopped sitting near the water. The pool that once gave him peace now gave him stress. One evening Adam stood behind the glass window and watched the neighbors enjoy themselves in his yard. They played music. They laughed. They sat on his chairs as if they owned them. Adam felt something inside him change. It was not anger alone. It was the feeling of being pushed out of his own space. That night Adam did not sleep well. His thoughts moved in circles. He replayed every conversation, every smile that hid disrespect, every moment his voice was ignored. He realized something important. Being polite had not protected his peace. Being patient had only taught others that his boundaries meant nothing. By morning Adam had made a decision. He would not argue. He would not shout. He would not fight. He would change the situation in a way they would understand. Before sunrise, Adam stepped into his backyard with a steady heart. He knelt near the pool drain and opened it fully. The water flowed out slowly at first, then faster. By the time the sun rose, the pool was empty. Only the dry floor below reflected the light. Later that day, the neighbors arrived as usual. They climbed into the backyard ready for another swim. They stopped in confusion. The pool was empty. Children stared into the dry hole in disbelief. Rick leaned over the fence and frowned. Adam watched from his window with calm eyes. No one laughed that afternoon. That evening Rick knocked on Adam's door. He asked why the pool was empty. Adam answered quietly that it was his pool and he could do whatever he wished with it. Rick gave an awkward smile and said he understood. Adam believed for one moment that the message had finally reached them. The next afternoon proved him wrong. The neighbors returned again. This time they brought chairs. They placed the chairs inside the empty pool. They sat in the shade of the deep pit and laughed. They played music. They treated the empty pool like a playground. Adam watched from inside his house with an unreadable face. He did not feel anger. He felt clarity. That night Adam went into his storage room. He pulled out old tools. He pulled out cleaning supplies. He opened containers he had not touched since the day he moved in. By morning step 2 of his plan was ready. He filled the pool again. But this time it was not with clear blue water. It was filled with thick dark muddy water mixed with harmless cleaning solution that smelled strong and unpleasant but caused no harm. The surface looked still. The smell hung in the air. The neighbors arrived as always. Children ran first. One foot stepped into the water and froze. They shouted. They jumped back. Adults rushed forward and stared into the pool in shock. The smell hit them next. Rick shouted across the fence, asking what Adam had done. Adam stepped out calmly and answered that he had cleaned his pool in his own way. Rick demanded that Adam empty it at once. Adam smiled politely and said that the pool was private and he would decide what stayed inside it. The neighbors left that day quietly. For the first time in months, the backyard was silent. Adam sat near the edge of the pool that evening and felt peace return slowly. He believed the problem was finally over. He was wrong again, because the next move would not come from Adam. It would come from the neighbors. For the first time in many months, Adam felt a calm morning. He stepped out into his yard and breathed the quiet air. No children. No shouting. No splashing. No strangers sitting in his chairs. Only silence and the strange smell of the muddy pool he had created as a message. He knew the muddy water was harmless. It was just a mix of dirt water and safe cleaning solution that smelled unpleasant but caused no damage. It was not meant to hurt anyone. It was meant to show a boundary that words could not protect. As Adam sipped his morning tea, he wondered how long the peace would last. By late afternoon he received his answer. Rick, the neighbor who had ignored him for months, walked into Adam's yard without knocking. He looked angry. His voice was louder than usual. He asked why Adam had created such a mess in the pool and said the smell was spreading. Adam stayed calm. He told Rick again that the pool was his and he could choose what to do with it. Rick argued that their children used the pool often and now had nowhere to swim. Adam reminded him once more that the children should not be using a pool that did not belong to them. Rick clenched his teeth. He said Adam was being selfish and unkind. Adam kept his voice steady. He said that respecting someone's property was not selfish. It was normal. It was right. Rick stormed out of the yard angry and red-faced. Adam watched him leave but said nothing more. He thought the confrontation was over. But the next morning something strange appeared on his front lawn. A sign. A large hand-painted sign placed by someone in the night. It said Adam was unfriendly. It said he refused to help the neighborhood. It said he kept everything to himself and never shared. Adam stood still staring at it. He felt the heaviness of frustration press into his shoulders. He removed the sign quietly and threw it away. He did not want to start a war. He wanted to end one. Later that same day he noticed something else. People who once waved at him now avoided eye contact. Some whispered as he walked past. Others crossed the street before greeting him. Word spread fast in small neighborhoods. Someone had turned him into the villain of the street. Adam returned home early that evening. When he stepped into his backyard he paused. There were muddy footprints on the pool deck. Chairs moved out of place. And the pool pump was turned off and unplugged. Someone had entered without permission. The message was clear. They were not done with him. Adam sat down near the dry grass feeling tired. He had tried patience. He had tried words. He had tried a small harmless trick to protect his space. But the neighbors did not understand boundaries. They did not want peace. They wanted control. The next day Rick appeared again, but this time he was not alone. 2 other neighbors stood behind him. They spoke loudly saying that Adam was creating problems for everyone. They said the pool had become an eyesore. They said the smell was too strong. Adam remained calm. He repeated that the pool was his and that the water was harmless. They did not listen. They demanded he clean the pool immediately. Rick added that the whole neighborhood believed Adam should let the children use the pool again. Adam felt something inside him harden. He looked at the group and said gently that he had never agreed to share the pool. He had never invited anyone into it. He had never allowed strangers in his yard. He had only asked for respect. Rick laughed loudly and said Adam should move if he wanted to live alone. Adam did not respond. He simply walked back inside and closed the door. He knew arguing with them would only waste energy. That night Adam sat at his kitchen table thinking deeply. He knew the situation was growing bigger than he wanted. The neighbors were pushing him. They were trying to break him. They wanted him to give in or react in anger. Adam refused to do either. He remembered something important. He did not buy his home to live in a fight. He bought it to live in peace. And peace is something a person has to protect with wisdom, not with shouting. He decided he would take a new approach. One that was clever, calm, and impossible to argue with. The next morning, Adam drove into town. He visited a hardware store, a gardening shop, and a small outdoor supply store. He purchased things quietly. Tools. Materials. A few special items. Some heavy, some light. When he returned home he carried everything through the backyard door with purpose. He began working. First he drained the muddy pool completely again. Then he scrubbed the inside until it looked clean. Neighbors passing by watched him with satisfaction, thinking he had finally surrendered. But Adam did not look at them. He kept working carefully. After the pool was clean, Adam pulled out a large roll of strong metal mesh. He lifted it and began stretching it across the entire top of the pool. Slowly he secured it with metal clamps. Then he added a second layer. Then a third. By afternoon the pool was covered tightly with heavy steel mesh that no child or adult could enter. It was too strong to lift. Too thick to cut. Too high to climb. When it was finished the pool looked like a protected safe area that was still beautiful but completely inaccessible to anyone. Finally he placed a new sign on the fence. It was not a rude sign. It was not an angry sign. It was a simple sign written in clear, polite words. Private area do not enter security system active. The neighbors gathered near the fence when Adam stepped back to view his finished work. Their faces showed confusion and frustration. Rick demanded an explanation. He shouted that Adam was taking things too far. He accused him of making the neighborhood uncomfortable. Adam looked at him calmly and said he had the right to protect his home. He said the mesh was safe and legal. He said no one would be using his pool anymore. Not children. Not adults. No one but him. Rick tried to argue, but the other neighbors stayed quiet. They knew the pool belonged to Adam. They knew he had not broken any rules. They did not like it, but they had nothing to say. For the next few days the street grew quiet. No children climbed over the fence. No adults walked into the yard. No one tried to use the pool. The heavy steel cover sent a message stronger than words. The neighbors had been blocked in a way they could not undo. They felt defeated. Adam finally had his peace back. But peace did not stay long. On the fourth night, Adam woke to a faint metallic sound. Something soft. Something slow. He stepped outside quietly and looked toward the pool. Two shadows crouched near the metal mesh. Someone was trying to cut through the cover. Adam felt a deep cold calm settle in his chest. He did not shout. He did not run. He walked quietly to the side gate and locked it from inside. Then he turned on the new security system he had installed that same morning. A loud alarm exploded through the night. Lights flashed across the pool deck. The two intruders jumped in fear and ran toward the fence. One threw himself over it and fell into his own yard. The other scrambled after him. The alarm continued until the entire neighborhood woke up. People rushed outside in confusion. They looked around in shock. Adam stood calmly in his yard with the alarm ringing. He pressed a button to turn it off, then pointed toward the fence. He said loud enough for everyone to hear that someone had tried to break into his private pool again. He said the alarm had saved him from damage and intrusion. He said he would not live in fear or silence anymore. Everyone stared at Rick's house. Because the two shapes that ran away had come from his yard. Rick stepped outside looking pale. He did not speak. The other neighbors whispered among themselves. They finally understood that Adam had not been the problem all along. After the crowd slowly went home, Adam turned off the lights and returned to bed. He felt tired but relieved. His measures had worked. His pool was safe. His privacy was protected. The next morning the entire street noticed something new. Rick was gone. His family had packed in the early hours and left without a word. The neighborhood felt lighter. The tension broke. People began greeting Adam again. They apologized quietly for misunderstanding him. They said they had been misled. Adam accepted their apologies with gentle nods. He walked to his backyard and sat beside the covered pool. The metal mesh glowed in the sunlight. He touched it and felt gratitude. Not for the metal itself, but for his courage to protect his peace. Yet he knew one thing. This story was not over yet. Because the next surprise hidden in the bottom of the pool would change everything. The morning after Rick and his family left, the neighborhood felt strangely peaceful. The street that once echoed with loud voices and restless movement now stood calm under the warm sunlight. Birds sang on the fences. Leaves moved gently in the breeze. For the first time in a long time, Adam felt the quiet he had always dreamed of. He stepped into his backyard with a cup of warm tea and looked at the covered pool. The strong metal mesh lay perfectly in place. No footprints. No fingerprints. No signs of intruders. Everything looked safe. Everything looked settled. Yet a question rested in Adam's mind. A question he had ignored for many weeks. Why had the neighbors been so desperate to use his pool? Why had they kept coming even when he clearly said no? Why had they gone so far as to sneak in at night and try to cut through the cover? Children loved pools, but adults did not risk trouble for simple fun. There had to be a reason. Something more. Adam sat down on his old wooden chair and thought quietly. He remembered the day he emptied the pool for the first time. The neighbors had not been upset. They had not complained. They had not argued. Instead, they treated the empty pool like a playground and sat inside it for hours. That memory now felt strange to him. If they loved swimming so much, why did an empty pool still attract them? Another memory returned. The day he filled the pool with muddy water. Not one of the neighbors stepped inside. They kept a distance. They looked worried. They did not shout at him. They did not blame quickly. They only stared at the water as if something inside frightened them. Adam lowered his cup slowly. A thought formed in his mind. What if the neighbors were not interested in the pool? What if they were interested in something under it? Adam stood up and walked to the pool. He stepped onto the metal mesh and pressed his foot down slightly. The cover did not move. It was strong enough to hold a person. He knelt down and looked at the edges carefully. Everything looked normal. Nothing seemed unusual. But the feeling in his heart grew stronger. He decided he needed to check beneath the pool. He fetched his tools from the storage shed. He removed the clamps from the edges one by one. The metal mesh lifted slowly. He set it aside and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He stared into the clean blue water. The pool was deep but clear. Nothing unusual flowed on the surface. But as he looked deeper, a faint shape at the bottom caught his eye. Something small. Something dark. Something he had never noticed before. Adam grabbed the long cleaning brush and tried to reach it, but the handle was too short. He changed tools and used a metal rod. Still too far. Finally he took a deep breath and decided he had only one choice. He needed to go in. Adam climbed down the pool ladder and stepped into the cool water. It felt refreshing after days of stress. He swam down slowly. The shape at the bottom became clearer with each second. It looked like a small metal box hidden deep near the drain. His heart beat faster. He reached out and grabbed it. The box was heavy, but he lifted it slowly and pushed upward. When he reached the surface, he placed it carefully on the pool edge. It was old. It was rusted. It had a lock. Adam stared at it with confusion and curiosity. He climbed out of the pool and sat beside the box. Water dripped from his clothes onto the ground. He wiped his hands and examined the lock. It was small but weak. A few taps with his wrench broke it open. Inside the box was something that made Adam freeze completely. A notebook. A folded map. A set of old keys. And something even stranger. A note with one line written in faded ink. Do not let them find this. Adam's heart thumped. He lifted the notebook carefully. It was filled with handwriting. Not neat. Not messy. Just rushed. He began reading the first page. The first sentence made his breath stop. If you are reading this, then I failed to protect my home. The notebook belonged to the man who had lived in Adam's house before him. A man who had sold the property years ago and moved away quietly. The neighbors had spoken of him only once. They said he was always building things. Always digging. Always working in the yard. They said he kept to himself and never trusted anyone. Now his words rested in Adam's hands. Adam read slowly. The previous owner wrote about a disagreement with several neighbors. He wrote about a strong suspicion that they wanted something hidden in his property. He wrote about digging a deep hole under the pool foundation after noticing shadows in his yard at night. And then he wrote about something he discovered. Something buried long before either man lived there. Something the neighbors believed belonged to them. Something valuable enough for them to watch the house day and night. The notebook did not say exactly what it was. The writing grew more rushed on later pages. Words blurred. Sentences ended quickly. But the message was clear. The previous owner had hidden something under the pool. Something the neighbors wanted. Something he feared would bring danger. Adam opened the folded map. It showed a simple drawing of the property, the house, the yard, the pool, and a small mark under the pool floor. A mark that matched the place where Adam found the metal box. Next he checked the old keys. One was small. One was long. One was round. None of them looked like they belonged to anything he had seen before. Adam's hands shook slightly as he lifted the final item inside the box. A small metal container sealed tightly. He shook it. Something rattled inside. Something tiny. He opened it carefully. Inside was a single old coin. A coin made of gold. Engraved with symbols he did not recognize. Adam stared at it with wide eyes. He felt the weight of history press into his hand. The coin looked ancient. Possibly rare. Possibly priceless. He understood everything all at once. The neighbors had not wanted his pool. They had wanted what was under it. They had believed the treasure was still in the pool. They had watched the previous owner hide something. They had searched for years. And when Adam moved in they hoped he would be careless. They used his pool freely so they could search without suspicion. When he blocked them they grew desperate. When he covered the pool they tried to break in. When he installed the alarm they panicked. Adam held the coin tightly and whispered a soft breath. He now understood the behavior. The strange determination. The anger. The desperation. He picked up the notebook again and read the last page. If you are the new owner, be careful. People around you may smile, but not all will respect your home. Protect what is yours. Adam closed the notebook slowly. Later that afternoon he visited the police station. He explained what he found. He handed them the notebook, the map, the keys, and the coin. The officers took everything seriously. They said such an item must be examined properly. They said searching someone's yard without permission was a serious matter. They said the actions of the neighbors were wrong and could be investigated further. Adam left the station feeling lighter. Days later the police contacted him. The coin was verified as an old historical piece. Valuable but not dangerous. It belonged legally to Adam since it was found on his property and had no registered owner. The officers visited Rick's former house but found it empty. The family had left in a hurry. No forwarding address. No explanation. The truth about their behavior became clear and the case was closed. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal. People greeted Adam again. Children played at a distance. Adults spoke kindly and apologized for misunderstanding him. Adam accepted their kindness but never forgot what he learned. People sometimes take advantage of silence. People sometimes cross boundaries when they think no one will stop them. People sometimes smile while hiding reasons. Adam fixed the pool again. He cleaned it, filled it, and placed the strong metal cover back on top. Not to keep neighbors out now, but to protect his own peace and the treasure beneath his home. He kept the coin in a safe place. He kept the notebook as a reminder. He kept the map as a symbol of mystery. Sometimes he sat near the pool and thought about the previous owner. A man who warned him through faded ink. A man who had tried to protect the property before Adam even arrived. Adam lifted the coin one evening. The sun reflected on its surface, making it glow. He smiled softly. Not because of its value but because he had finally reclaimed his home, his quiet, and his strength. The pool was no longer a place of stress. It was truly his again. And no one would dare cross that boundary ever again.